Singapore retail sales rose for the fourth straight month in May, hitting $3.3 billion. Households loosened their purse strings amid optimism from the COVID-19 vaccination rollout and economic recovery. The growth was also due to the low base a year ago when most shops were shuttered due to the circuit breaker. Retail sales in May jumped almost 80% on year, extending April's rise at 54%. While still below pre-COVID levels, takings at the till rose significantly across almost all sectors. Sales of watches and jewellery increased the most, surging by more than 20 times on year. These were followed by sales at department stores, clothing and footwear, and motor vehicles. Growth for each segment more than quadrupled. The only segments where sales fell were supermarkets and mini-marts due to higher demand for groceries last year as more people stayed home during the circuit breaker. On a monthly basis, cautious consumer sentiment lingers. Overall retail sales fell by 6.8% compared to April. Sales of food and beverages also fell as dining in wasn't allowed due to COVID-19 measures. Analysts expect domestic demand to continue holding up, supported by an improving labour market. Retail sales expanded by 19% in the first 5 months of the year.
In the coming months, the growth numbers will come off as the base effects start to come in and taper off. And overall, I think we're expecting about a 15% year-on-year increase for the full year. Owing to, I think, still sort of like sluggish impetus in spending. But I think levels should reach pre-pandemic levels perhaps by the end of the year. So I think that is a positive.